Okay, I am really excited to get into this today. We're exploring something, well, it feels really personal, but also universal, how we actually talk about our future, our hopes,
Yeah.
our plans.
Yeah, it's fundamental. And, this deep dive is all about the words we use when we're expressing desire and maybe why picking the right word can actually sort of shape the outcome.
Exactly. So for everyone listening, we've looked at sources covering, well, everything from basic vocabulary tools right up to some pretty deep behavioral psychology.
That's right. And words like dreams, goals, ambitions, they get thrown around so much they can feel a bit fuzzy, abstract.
Yeah, they lose their punch.
Exactly. So our mission today is to cut through that fuzziness. We want to give you really clear definitions, some practical language tools, and kind of an organized framework for actually pursuing those goals successfully.
Okay, and an actionable structure. I like that.
Yeah, something you can actually use for your own journey.
Perfect. Okay, so let's start right at the beginning then. Definitions. I know I, for one, sometimes get goals and dreams a bit mixed up. Where's the starting line? What's the real difference between these big words?
It's a really key distinction, actually. Let's start with the one that probably feels the most immediate, a goal.
Okay.
A goal is concrete. It's something you're actively working towards. Ideally, it's measurable. And, it should really have a plan attached. Think of it like the task you'd actually schedule.
Right, like learn 20 new English words this week. That's specific.
Exactly. Or save $1,000 by Christmas. It's tangible. There's a target.
Okay, so if the goal is the concrete task, what I'm doing now, then a dream is more like the why, the bigger picture.
Precisely. A dream is that bigger, more emotional wish for the future. It's often less defined, maybe less tied to a specific date.
Like travel the world.
Yeah, or have a fulfilling career or find happiness. It's aspirational. The goal is really the first sort of concrete step you take towards making that huge dream a reality.
Okay, that clicks. So the dream is the far-off destination, and the goal is like the next turn the GPS gives you.
That's a great way to put it. If the dream is traveling the world, the goal might be saving enough for that first plane ticket.
Got it. So where does ambition fit into this puzzle?
Ambition. Ambition is more like the engine driving the whole thing. It's that strong underlying desire to achieve something significant, to be successful.
So it's not a step or a destination, it's the fuel.
Exactly. It's the persistent energy that fuels both your goals and your dreams, especially over the long term. It's the drive itself.
Okay, that framework helps a lot. Right, let's unpack the language side now. Once we figure out what we want, we need the right words to actually express it, the language toolkit.
Yeah, how do we talk about this stuff?
Yeah.
The most basic way, the foundation, is just using the verb want.
Simple enough. I want to plus verb.
I want to learn guitar. I want to visit Italy. It's direct, it's clear. But sometimes, because it is so direct, it can come across as a bit maybe demanding or even childish in some situations.
Right. You wouldn't usually say, I want a promotion in a performance review.
Probably not, which is why we need softer options. And one you mentioned, hope, is really useful here. I hope to plus verb.
Yeah, I like that one. It feels more optimistic, maybe acknowledges things aren't entirely in your control.
It does. And strategically, using hope works really well with time frames that aren't set in stone. I hope to visit Italy next year. It expresses the plan, the positive intent, but with a bit of flexibility.
And it's perfect for that vague future time, someday. I hope to travel the world someday.
Exactly. Then there's the next level up, really, in terms of politeness or formality. And that's using I would like to, or the contraction I'd like to.
Yes. The polite form. Essential for, say, job interviews.
Absolutely essential. Imagine you're asked about your 5-year plan. Saying, I want to be the manager might sound a bit aggressive.
Yeah, maybe a bit entitled.
Right. But saying, I would like to grow into a leadership role, or I'd like to take on more responsibility, perhaps leading a team in the future. That sounds professional, considered?
It's subtle, but it really changes the tone. It's not just grammar, is it? It's social awareness.
Definitely. Let's do a quick comparison. Let's use the goal. Getting a new job.
Okay, so the direct basic desire.
I want to get a new job. Simple.
Okay, now maybe looking ahead, a bit softer.
I hope to find a new role in the next few months. Optimistic, future-oriented.
And the polished professional version.
I would like to transition into a position where I can better utilize my skills in X and Y. It shows thought, professionalism. Knowing when to use which is key.
Okay, that's really clear. So moving on from the language itself, let's talk strategy. We've defined the goal, we've found the words. Now, how do we actually structure the work involved? How do we organize it?
Right, the planning phase. The most fundamental strategy here is breaking things down by time. Short-term versus long-term goals.
Yes, because just staring at a huge dream can be totally overwhelming.
Yeah, completely. You need to break it down.
Yeah.
Short-term goals are the things you can achieve pretty quickly today, this week, maybe this month. They're practical, action-oriented.
Like the building blocks.
Exactly. They give you those small wins, that feeling of progress. And they need to be specific. Like, for learning piano, maybe it's practice scales for 20 minutes every day this week.
Measurable, immediate. Gives you momentum.
Precisely. Those small successes build confidence. They make the big goal feel less impossible.
And these short-term blocks build towards the long-term goals. These are the big ones, the 5-year plan, the 10-year vision, maybe even a lifetime goal, the North Star idea.
That's it. They give you direction, purpose. Let's use running a marathon next year as an example. Huge goal, right? Especially if you're starting from scratch.
Seems impossible at first.
Right. But you break it down. The long-term goal is the marathon. The short-term goal for this week might just be run for 10 minutes without stopping 3 times. Manageable. Achievable.
And that really highlights that saying a goal without a plan is just a wish. The plan is everything.
It really is. The plan is how you break that huge goal down into those small, manageable steps. Let's take another example. Baking a complicated cake.
Okay, you don't just bake a cake.
No. You break it down. First step, choose a recipe. Next, check if you have all the ingredients. Then, go to the store for what's missing. See. Steps.
And the language we use to explain that plan needs structure, too, using sequence words.
Exactly. You need to guide yourself or someone else through the process. First, choose the recipe. Next, check the cupboards. Then, make a shopping list. After that, go shopping. Finally, start baking. Those words, first, next, then. After that, finally, they create clarity.
Order out of chaos. And we can also link steps together using time connectors like before and after.
Crucial. For instance, before I go to the store, I will make a shopping list. Makes sense, right? Saves time. Or after I find the recipe, I'll check my ingredients. It shows the dependency, the logical flow. These little words make a plan robust.
Okay, so we have the definitions, the language, the map, the plan. But what about the fuel for the journey? What keeps us going when it gets tough? Motivation.
The why. Understanding your why is absolutely critical for commitment, for pushing through difficulties. Psychologists generally talk about 2 main types of motivation. The first one is often the most obvious, extrinsic motivation.
Right, the motivation that comes from outside ourselves, like rewards or avoiding punishment.
Exactly. The classic example is working mainly for the paycheck. The money is external, you get it after doing the work. Or studying hard just to get a good grade, not because you love the subject.
The reward is separate from the activity.
Correct. And then there's the other type, often seen as more powerful, more sustainable, intrinsic motivation.
This comes from inside.
Yes. You do the activity because the activity itself is rewarding. For the joy of it, the satisfaction, the challenge, the learning. Think of someone playing guitar just because they love it.
Or volunteering because it feels good to help.
Precisely. The reward is the feeling you get while doing it.
Now, what's really interesting, especially for big, complex goals like learning a language or building a business, it's rarely just one or the other, is it?
Almost never. It's usually a potent mix. The extrinsic goals, like getting that certificate or hitting a sales target, they provide clear benchmarks, practical targets.
They give you something concrete to aim for.
Right. But it's the intrinsic drive. The genuine interest, the passion for the subject, the love of the process, the desire for mastery, that's the deep well you draw from when things get tough, when those external rewards feel far away.
That's the fuel that keeps the engine running on fumes sometimes.
Absolutely. But even with the best fuel, the road's never perfectly smooth. There will be bumps. We need to talk about obstacles and setbacks.
Things that block the path or slow you down, and how we deal with them.
Exactly. This is where mental fortitude comes in. 2 crucial qualities here are resilience and perseverance.
Okay, let's define those. Resilience first. That's about bouncing back, right?
Yeah, bouncing back quickly from difficulties. Let's go back to the marathon runner. Say they've been training consistently, then they sprain their ankle. That's a setback.
A major one. Could derail the whole thing.
It could. Someone lacking resilience might just quit. See, I knew I couldn't do it. But a resilient person adapts. They think, okay, I can't run for a few weeks. What can I do? Swim, strength train, focus on rehab. They find another way forward.
They adjust the plan, not abandon the goal.
Yeah.
And perseverance.
Perseverance is sticking with it, especially over the long haul. Even when it's difficult and you're not seeing immediate results, it's grit.
Like learning a language. After months, you still make basic errors. It's frustrating.
Deeply frustrating. Perseverance is showing up for practice anyway. It's that belief that chipping away day after day, even when it feels slow, will eventually lead to progress. It's the long game.
And we can build both resilience and perseverance through developing a growth mindset.
Yeah.
Can you break that down simply?
Sure. A growth mindset is basically the belief that your abilities aren't fixed. Someone with a fixed mindset might fail a test and think, I'm just bad at this subject, full stop.
End of story.
Right. But someone with a growth mindset thinks, okay, I didn't pass this time. What went wrong? What can I learn from my mistakes? How can I prepare differently next time?
So failure isn't a verdict, it's data.
Exactly. It's information. It's an opportunity to learn and improve. You see challenges not as threats, but as chances to grow. It reframes the whole experience.
Okay, this is where, for me, it gets really fascinating. We've got the mechanics, the motivation, but then there are these big psychological walls we put up ourselves. Let's start with the big one. Fear of failure.
Yes. Universal. It can be completely paralyzing. People don't start because the thought of failing, the potential shame or judgment, feels worse than never trying at all.
Leads to procrastination, playing small.
All of that. And the strategy we touched on, reframing failure, is key. If you see an attempt not as a pass-fail test of your worth, but as an experiment.
An experiment designed to teach you something.
Precisely. Then the pressure comes off. The goal of the experiment is learning, not necessarily a perfect outcome on the first try. It neutralizes some of that fear.
But then there's the flip side, which seems counterintuitive but is apparently very real. The fear of success.
It sounds strange, doesn't it? Especially if you're currently struggling. But for people nearing a major goal, it can be a huge, often subconscious blocker.
It's the fear of what comes with success, right? Like more pressure, higher expectations.
Exactly that. Suddenly, people expect more from you. If you get that big promotion, the responsibility quadruples. If your small business suddenly takes off, now you have employees depending on you. It's a different kind of stress.
And it can change your life in ways you didn't anticipate. Maybe relationships change, old friends feel distant or jealous, your identity might shift.
All of those things. Success can be isolating. It demands change. And change, even positive change, can be scary. People might subconsciously hold themselves back to avoid navigating that new territory.
So how do you deal with that fear?
It often comes down to building genuine self-confidence, knowing you can handle the new challenges, and consciously staying grounded. Remembering your core values, maintaining connections with people who knew you before, not letting the success redefine you completely.
It really highlights how ambition itself is this double-edged sword.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
The positive edge is amazing. It drives innovation, progress, personal growth. It pushes us to achieve incredible things.
But the negative edge, that's where the danger lies.
Yeah. The risk of burnout is massive. People sacrifice health, relationships, everything for one single goal.
Yeah.
It can also lead to that win-at-all-costs mentality, cutting corners, unethical behavior.
And tying your entire sense of self-worth to your achievements, which is incredibly fragile.
Terribly fragile. If your identity is 100% successful business owner, what happens if the business fails? Your whole world collapses, which leads to a great concept for balance.
Having a wide life.
Exactly. Instead of putting all your eggs in one basket, having a balanced portfolio. Career, yes, but also health, family, hobbies, community. If one area takes a hit, you're still grounded by the others. It allows for passionate, ambitious pursuits, but in a sustainable, healthier way.
That's a fantastic way to frame it. Okay, so we've really covered a lot of ground here. Definitions, the language tools, strategies for planning, the crucial role of motivation, dealing with obstacles, and navigating the psychology of it all.
Yeah, the path we've sort of mapped out is get clear on your goals, organize them strategically, short-term, long-term, fuel them with that deep intrinsic motivation, but always aim for balance.
So wrapping this all up, what does this mean for you listening right now in the bigger picture? We often get so fixated on reaching the destination, getting the degree, finishing the project, hitting the target, thinking that moment of arrival will bring lasting happiness. But there's a catch, isn't there?
There is. It's a well-documented psychological phenomenon called the arrival fallacy.
The arrival fallacy, explain that.
It's the mistaken belief that achieving a specific external goal, the promotion, the house, the award, will lead to a permanent state of happiness or contentment.
But it doesn't usually work like that, does it?
Rarely. You might feel intense joy or relief right when you achieve it, but that feeling is often surprisingly temporary. The emotional high fades, sometimes quite quickly. Then you might even feel a bit lost, like, okay, what now?
So if the finish line itself isn't the source of lasting fulfillment, where does it come from?
It comes from the journey. It's found in the process itself. The hundreds, maybe thousands of hours spent practicing, learning, struggling, overcoming setbacks, developing that growth mindset.
It's about who you become along the way.
Exactly. The real sustainable satisfaction comes from falling in love with the process of becoming. If you can find genuine enjoyment in the daily habits, the small acts of perseverance, the learning, then every day contributes to your fulfillment, regardless of when or even if you reach that final destination. The joy is in the doing, in the growth.
So that's the final thought we want to leave you with. If you're working towards something right now, ask yourself, what's one small part of the process, one daily habit involved in your journey that you can choose to find some enjoyment in starting today? Focus on embracing the consistency, the effort itself.
Because ultimately the success, the real reward, is often found in mastering the journey, not just crossing the finish line. Welcome back to the deep dive. So last time we really went deep into the internal side of ambition, didn't we?
We did, defining goals, motivation, resilience, that fear of failure, building that essential inner foundation.
Exactly, like the bedrock you need. But today, we're flipping the script.
Right, because, well, goals don't just stay inside your head, do they? They bump up against everyone, friends, family, colleagues.
Yeah, the real world.
So our mission today is to tackle that crucial social side. How do you actually talk about your ambitions out there?
Okay, yeah, this is vital. We're moving from the why inside to the how of communicating. So we'll cover like the language for sharing goals confidently, but also humbly. That sounds tricky.
It is a balance.
And then handling criticism, the doubters, navigating collaboration, and even how to talk about changing your mind, pivoting, without sounding like a failure.
These skills are honestly the difference maker. They can build you a support network or, well, leave you feeling like you're fighting everyone.
Okay, so where do we start? That first moment you decide to share something big.
That's it, that first step. Sharing a big dream.
Yeah.
It feels vulnerable, right? You want to be taken seriously, but you're maybe worried about sounding, I don't know, naive or even arrogant.
Totally. That's a fine line. Like saying, I am going to be a famous writer or I'm launching this huge company. It can sound a bit much.
You can put people on the defensive, yeah. Or just invite skepticism. It focuses too much on like the final status.
So how do we get past that? How do you talk about it in a way that's more grounded, more about the process, something people can actually get behind?
Well, the key is shifting the language. You need to focus on the journey, not just the destination. Because if you focus only on the outcome, people judge the outcome.
Ah, okay.
But if you focus on the process, you kind of invite them into the effort. So a really foundational phrase is simply, I'm working towards.
I see. So instead of that big, bold declaration,
right,
you bring it down to the present. Like, I'm working towards writing my first novel. That feels different.
Exactly. It sounds like you're doing the work now. It's grounded. It acknowledges effort.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you're claiming future glory, just putting in the hours.
And think about how someone hears that. If a friend hears, I'm working towards, they're more likely to ask, oh, cool, how's it going? It opens door for conversation.
Right, rather than shutting it with a big pronouncement. That makes sense.
Right.
But what if the goal is still more aspirational? Maybe you haven't quite started the working towards part actively yet.
Good question. Then you frame it with, let's say, cautious optimism. Try this phrase. My hope is to.
Okay.
You could say, my hope is to eventually start my own small business. It signals the desire, the plan, but without the pressure of a definite, I am doing this right now.
It's softer, but still intentional.
Precisely. It's optimistic, not arrogant.
Okay, but what about, say, professional settings? Talking to your boss or a mentor. My hope is to might feel a little light. Need something with a bit more weight, maybe?
Absolutely. Context matters. For those situations, when you need to convey real intention and proactivity, this works well. I've set a goal for myself, too.
Big word.
I've set a goal for myself to get certified in project management this year. See? It sounds prepared, responsible. It frames it as a deliberate action plan.
So across the board, whether it's working towards, hope to, or set a goal, the idea is to use language that invites discussion about the journey.
Exactly. It's about humility, process, and inviting support, rather than just stating a potentially intimidating endpoint.
Okay, but inevitably,
Yeah.
you share your goal, even phrased perfectly,
And boom!
and someone hits you with doubt or criticism or, oh gosh, the unsolicited advice.
Yeah. You know most new businesses fail, right? Or are you sure that's realistic?
Yes, total motivation killer. And it can strain the relationship too, if you get defensive.
Right. So the skill here isn't about winning the argument or defending the dream aggressively. It's about protecting the dream and the relationship.
How do you do that?
The core strategy is maybe a bit counterintuitive. First, you validate their concern. You actually acknowledge it.
Really? Even if you think they're wrong.
Especially then, maybe. It disarms them. You assume they mean well, that they're concerned for you.
Okay, so what's the magic phrase for that?
It's polite and very effective. I appreciate your concern.
I appreciate your concern. Why is that better than, say, agreeing with them? Like, yeah, you're probably right.
Because you're not agreeing with the substance of their doubt. You're just acknowledging their feeling of concern. It says, I hear you, without conceding your point. It stops them feeling ignored, which often fuels arguments.
That's clever. So you validate the feeling, not the criticism itself. And then what?
Then you follow up calmly, showing you're not naive. You signal you've done your homework. The phrase is, it's something I've thought about a lot.
Okay. So you're not just jumping in blind.
Exactly. So the whole response might sound like, I appreciate your concern. That failure rate is daunting. It's definitely a big step. And it's something I've thought about a lot. I've actually looked into why most fail, and I feel like my approach addresses some of those pitfalls.
That sounds solid.
Yeah.
Respectful, but firm. Okay, what about the other scenario, the unsolicited advice? Like, instead of starting a bakery, you should really get an MBA. They're not doubting, they're redirecting.
Right, trying to impose their path on you. This needs a very, very subtle way to create distance without being rude.
Okay, give it to me.
Try this. That's an interesting perspective.
Ooh, that sounds polite, but kind of chilly.
It is, in the best way. It acknowledges you heard them, but you give absolutely zero agreement or ground. It's a gentle boundary.
And then you follow up?
Yes, you follow it immediately with a statement about your own choice. That's an interesting perspective. I can see why you'd think that's a safer route. For me, though, this creative path feels right now.
So you're not arguing why they're wrong, you're just stating your choice.
Precisely. Protect your motivation, state your direction, and the unhelpful detour. Polite, firm, informed. That's the goal.
That's really useful. Okay, let's shift gears a bit from individual goals to shared ones.
Yes, the we goals. Projects at work, maybe financial planning with a partner, family stuff. This is where communication really gets tangled.
Because everyone has slightly different ideas,
Yeah.
right? People jump into doing things before they even agree on what they're trying to achieve.
Exactly. So the first piece of language you need is for alignment right at the start. Before anyone does anything, you need to focus the group. Ask, okay, what's our main objective here?
Main objective, not just what are we doing?
Right. Or you could ask, what's the most important outcome for us? Doing focuses on tasks, which leads to arguments about how to do things. Objective, or outcome, forces agreement on the destination first. Then you figure out the tasks to get there.
That makes sense. Get the compass pointing north before you start walking.
You got it. And then for the planning part, you need buy-in. If one person just dictates the plan, well, motivation tanks.
Yeah, people feel like minions, not partners.
So you invite collaboration with genuine open questions like, how should we approach this? Or what do you all think our first step should be? It shows you the value of their input, you're building it together. That creates ownership.
Okay, objective set, plan co-created. But then, midway through a project, things start to drift. Misunderstandings happen.
Happens all the time. Assumptions creep in. That's why you need regular alignment checks. There's a simple, incredibly useful phrase for this.
Which is?
Just pause and say, hey, let's just make sure we're on the same page here.
On the same page. It sounds so normal.
It is, and that's why it works. It's not confrontational. You're not blaming anyone. You're just saying, let's pause and sync up. Check understanding about the goal, the next steps, who's doing what. Use it often. It prevents so many problems.
Good advice. Okay, moving on to something maybe a bit trickier, more advanced. The pivot.
Yes, the art of changing direction.
When you realize the path you were so excited about isn't right anymore, and acknowledging that changing your mind isn't failing, it's often wisdom, right? Learning something new.
Absolutely crucial. Because internally, you might feel relief But externally, the people who are cheering you on might feel confused, maybe even let down.
Yeah, you need to explain it carefully, not sound impulsive or like you just gave up when things got hard.
Exactly. Thoughtful and intentional is the vibe. So how do you start that conversation? How do you break the news?
What's the opener?
Emphasize the thought process first. Say something like, after a lot of thought, I've decided to change direction. Starting with a lot of thought immediately frames it as strategic, not reactive.
Okay, signals deliberation. And then you need a reason.
Yeah.
A mature reason.
Right. And there are a couple of good ways to frame it. One is simply about your internal landscape changing.
You mean like?
My priorities have shifted recently. Maybe what mattered 6 months ago just doesn't as much now. Maybe family or health or something else has become the main focus. Right. That's valid. Be honest about it.
Okay. And the other way, you mentioned framing it as learning.
Yes, this is really powerful because it honors the effort you already put in. You can say, I've learned a lot on this journey, and through that, I've realized that this isn't actually the right path for me long term.
So the journey wasn't wasted, it was research.
Exactly. You gathered data, the data showed dead end or better path over here, and now you're acting on that data. It shows self-awareness, not failure. You finished learning what you needed from that phase.
That reframes it completely. Makes the pivot feel like a confident step forward. Okay, almost there. The final piece.
Celebrating, acknowledging progress, your own and other people's. This is the fuel, honestly. Keeps the motivation going.
Right. How do we acknowledge our own progress without suddenly sounding like we're bragging after all this effort and humility?
Good point. The key is reflective language. Focus on internal feelings and the effort involved, not comparing yourself to others. Avoid, I'm the best. Try something like, I'm really proud of how far I've come. You know, it wasn't easy, but I'm happy with the progress I've made. It centers on your feeling, your journey, your effort. Relatable, not boastful.
Okay, that feels right. And then celebrating others. A friend gets that promotion, finishes a marathon. We need more than just a quick congrats, right? To make it meaningful.
Definitely. To make it really land, acknowledge the effort behind the result. Say something like, that's fantastic. Seriously, I know how hard you work for this, how many hours you put in. You really deserve it.
Showing you saw the struggle, not just the win.
Exactly. That means so much more.
Okay, and what about conveying genuine shared joy?
Yeah.
Like cutting through any potential awkwardness or, perceived jealousy, especially in competitive fields.
Use strong, positive emotional language. This one is great. I'm so thrilled for you.
Thrilled, that's a strong word.
It is. It conveys genuine, unreserved excitement. It's pure, supportive friendship. It says, your win makes me happy, full stop. No comparison, no reservation.
Wow. Okay, so that really brings our whole two-part exploration together, doesn't it?
It really does. From the deep inner work of defining ambition to mastering the social language needed to actually navigate it in the world.
Yeah, the tools for sharing humbly, handling the critics gracefully, working together, pivoting smartly.
And celebrating the wins, big and small. It's moving from just, I want to do this inside your head, to having these complex, empathetic conversations that actually build support.
So here's a final thought to chew on, maybe. If mastering this social side of ambition means validating others' concerns, being flexible enough to pivot based on what you learn, does that change what success even is?
Interesting question.
Maybe true ambition isn't just about hitting some fixed target anymore, but more about, maintaining those strong relationships and that self-awareness along the whole continuous journey. What do you think? Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Okay, our mission today, it's swift, it's clear. We're jumping right to the cutting edge of sustained ambition. We've all set goals, sure, but today is different. We're getting into the really advanced stuff, the strategies, the mindsets you need to manage a truly complex, long-term, goal-focused life.
Right. This is kind of the final ascent, isn't it? If you've done the work, mapped your dreams, built that foundation, you inevitably hit this next, much harder challenge, navigating the reality, the messy reality of conflicting demands. So, yeah, this dive is all about that strategic framework, the one that stops really ambitious people from just, burning out or hitting a wall.
Exactly. We're looking way beyond the basics here. Goal setting 101, that's not this. We're talking advanced concepts. Things like, how do you prioritize when everything feels critical? How do you strategically tap into wisdom? And maybe the biggest one, what happens psychologically the moment you actually succeed? How do you avoid that pitfall? It's really about building a life that's fulfilling, that's durable, not just checking off one big box.
And we'll give you the specific language too, the kind of framing that shows You're in control, you're self-aware. It helps you talk about these challenges strategically, whether it's with peers or potential mentors.
Okay, let's dive straight in then. That first big problem. It's universal, right?
Yeah.
That high-octane feeling of wanting to achieve everything. Like right now, you're pushing hard at work, trying to peak, you're committed to staying fit, you want to be there for your family. Oh, and there's that massive side project too. You just feel, pulled in a million directions, utterly pulled apart.
It's that constant strain, isn't it? Maximum effort, but spread across too many critical areas. There's a common idiom for this, and it really captures that conflict instantly. People say, I feel like I'm juggling too many balls at once.
Yeah, that visual. It's so powerful because it immediately forces the strategic question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do you figure out which of those balls are, well, truly important? Which ones can you maybe afford to drop, even just for a bit?
Exactly. When you say you're juggling too many balls, you're actually setting the stage. It's the first step towards strategic thinking about it. You then have to ask yourself, okay, which of these are glass balls and which are rubber?
Ooh, I like that framing. That's really good. The glass balls, they shatter if you drop them. So that's what things like your health, your core relationships, maybe personal integrity, things you can't just bounce back from.
Precisely. And the rubber balls, well, you can let them bounce. They might fall, but they'll come back. You can pick them up later. That might be, I don't know, a non-critical hobby or maybe a less urgent professional development thing.
Okay.
And that distinction is just crucial. Because the solution isn't simply work more hours. That's rarely it. It's about ruthless prioritization. And it's about acknowledging you need to make trade-offs, necessary ones.
And a trade-off, strategically speaking.
Right.
It isn't just giving up something you like, right? It's more specific.
Much more specific. It's consciously accepting an unwanted outcome, that's the sacrifice, because the desired outcome, your main priority, is way more important.
Right. And when you're pushing hard on multiple fronts like that, you hit a point.
Yeah.
You just realize it's not sustainable. You're burning the candle at both ends. You need that phrase, that strategic flag you wave, either to yourself or your team, that says, okay, stop, correction needed, which is?
Something has to give,
Yes.
that phrase. It's actually a powerful moment of recognition. It's when you stop pretending you can give 110% everywhere. It's just not possible. You might say, look, my workload is insane right now, and my sleep, my recovery time is suffering badly. I can't keep both up. Something has to give.
And that kind of strategic concession, it forces the next critical step, identifying what you call the non-negotiable. This isn't just another priority, is it? It's something deeper.
It's the core value, or maybe a necessary condition, like sleep, that you absolutely refuse to sacrifice, even if it means slowing down progress on a major goal.
So identifying that non-negotiable, maybe it's 8 hours of sleep, like you said, or daily time with family, or that weekly run for mental health. That becomes the ultimate sign of kind of self-aware ambition.
It really does. It transforms that feeling of being overwhelmed, which is passive, into an act of controlled self-management, which is active. So when you can say, look, I had to push the project deadline back a bit because my daily fitness routine is my non-negotiable, you're showing control. You're driving the goal. It's not driving you into the ground.
Using that precise language shows control, definitely. But wow, making those trade-offs, it's incredibly hard. Emotionally draining sometimes when you're in the thick of it.
It absolutely is. And that difficulty, that strategic challenge, leads us perfectly into the next area, seeking wisdom, guidance. Because advanced ambition isn't about toughing it out alone. It's defined by knowing how and when to strategically engage with others. People who've successfully navigated these same messy trade-offs before, those glass and rubber balls.
Okay, so let's talk about the language for that, the tactics of mentorship. How do you approach someone senior, someone who's clearly incredibly busy, but whose insights you genuinely need? How do you do that without sounding, well, demanding or naive?
You need an opening that feels collaborative, not extractive. A classic and really effective phrase is, could I pick your brain about something?
Pick your brain. Okay. Why does that work so well?
Well, it frames the request as light, like a quick transfer of ideas. It respects their time implicitly. It suggests you need maybe a nugget of their wisdom, not a huge commitment.
But sometimes, maybe with a real strategic leader, you need more than just a quick nugget, right? You need insight into their process, their decision-making.
Ah, okay. Then you need to elevate the language slightly. Use a more respectful, more formal phrase that really values their specific journey. Something like, I'd love to get your perspective on.
Your perspective, I see the difference.
Yeah, it's subtle but important. It acknowledges they have a unique viewpoint. forged through their experience. It's not just about facts they know. You're asking for their framework, their thinking, not just the right answer.
So you might ask something like, I'd love to get your perspective on how you handled that big career shift from specialist to general manager, something like that.
Exactly. It shows deep respect for the complexity of their path. And actually, while we're on guidance, it's really important to differentiate between a mentor and a sponsor. Big difference.
Right. Good point.
A mentor offers advice, maybe emotional support, shares their experience. A sponsor, though, actively uses their influence, their political capital, to advocate for your advancement.
So different roles require different types of engagement.
Totally. If you're serious about long-term ambition, you probably need both. And the way you communicate, the language you use, it needs to adapt based on whether you're talking to a mentor or trying to cultivate a sponsor.
That's a really crucial distinction. Okay, let's flip the coin.
Yeah.
Now you're the person who's navigated the tricky stuff. You're the one with the experience. How do you offer help humbly without making it seem like you assume the other person needs or even wants your advice?
Yeah, that's key. Humility. A warm offer of just availability is usually the best start. Something simple and low pressure, like if you ever want to chat about it, my door is always open.
My door is always open. Okay.
It's supportive, it's welcoming, but critically, it puts the power entirely in their hands. The mentee initiates if and when they feel ready. No pressure.
And what if you want to be a bit more proactive? Maybe offer something specific based on your experience, but again, without sounding like you're telling them what to do.
You need that little clause of humility. You frame it carefully. You could say, I'm happy to share what I've learned if it would be helpful.
If it would be helpful. That's the key phrase.
That's the critical bit. It positions your experience as a potential tool, a resource they might find useful. Not as a directive they must follow. That's the language of confident but humble leadership.
Okay, so you've got your priorities straight, you've built a support network, you're seeking and giving guidance effectively. Eventually, you hit the goal. You succeed. You cross that finish line. But here's where you say the advanced strategic challenge really kicks in. The day after, the aftermath of achievement.
Yes. This is the profound psychological hurdle that, honestly, ambitious people rarely discuss openly. We're just so wired to focus on the pursuit, the drive, the energy, solving the problems along the way. Our brains actually reward the journey, the process of striving, but then the goal is achieved. The structure vanishes. And that reward system can just kind of shut down.
You're talking about the anticlimax, right? Or what people often feel is a post-achievement slump, that weird emptiness after you reach the summit you spent years climbing toward. Why does that happen so often?
Well, because the goal itself often becomes a huge part of our immediate identity. It provides structure, meaning, daily focus. So the really high achiever needs to recognize this slump isn't a personal failure. It's a predictable psychological thing. It's natural. But if you don't acknowledge that anticlimax is possible, even likely, you become really vulnerable to the next danger. Complacency.
Complacency. That feeling of smugness.
Right.
Uncritical satisfaction with what you've already done. That seems like the ultimate trap for successful people, because if you stop moving, stop learning, the world just keeps moving around you, you risk becoming strategically irrelevant, stagnant.
Absolutely. So to avoid that complacency trap, you have to be deliberate. You need to basically institute a system, a strategic audit, immediately after hitting a major goal. You don't just celebrate and then coast. You audit, you ask, what really worked here? What surprised me, positively or negatively? And crucially, what structures, what dependencies did achieving this goal just remove from my life or work?
That tactical audit sounds like the foundation for the next move. So how do we use language then? How do we shift the focus from just, basking in the success to actually using it as a launchpad?
You pivot the conversation immediately. You reframe the success itself as just input for the next cycle. You say, okay, this was great, fantastic achievement. But the really exciting strategic question now is, how do we build on this success?
Build on this success. Okay, so that focuses on momentum, using it, not letting it fade. And for a lot of high achievers, that immediate next impulse is probably that feeling, that urge to set the bar higher.
Precisely. You shift the whole mindset. The success wasn't the final destination. It just established a new, higher baseline, a new starting point. Probably the most growth-oriented question a successful person can ask right after achieving something big is, what's the next mountain to climb?
What's the next mountain?
That language, that framing, ensures you're always evaluating strategically, always pushing forward, always using the last peak as basically the base camp for the next ascent.
Okay, this idea of continuous climbing, setting higher bars, It feels like it naturally leads us to the final stage, the most, maybe, philosophical part of sustained ambition. Moving beyond just personal goals, even serial ones, to think about long-term impact, contribution, legacy.
Yes, this is really the evolution of purpose, isn't it? You genuinely move from that internal question, what do I want to achieve for myself, to a more external one, which is, what lasting value can I actually contribute? To my field, maybe to the community, or even the world. The core concept here is making a lasting impact.
And making a lasting impact that implies your work, your contribution, keeps generating value long after you're maybe not directly involved anymore. It's like moving from just tracking your personal wins to tracking systemic contribution. You've gone from building your career to building a framework, maybe, that helps others build theirs.
Exactly. And this deep commitment to contribution connects directly to that really beautiful concept of paying it forward.
Right, paying it forward. Now, sometimes that phrase can feel a bit, I don't know, like a corporate cliche. But if we ground it in this context, in strategic ambition, what does it genuinely mean in practice?
In practice, it means consciously using your success, your platform, your hard-won wisdom, your network to actively help the next generation, to help them move faster, go farther than maybe you could initially. It's about creating a deliberate, sustained cycle of support. It's more than just giving advice now and then. It might mean actively sponsoring people, creating tangible opportunities for others, strategically transferring that institutional knowledge you've gained.
Okay, so that's the difference. It's not just random acts of kindness. It's strategic legacy building. The knowledge you gained, figuring out which balls were glass and which were rubber in your own life. That tough wisdom is now maybe your most valuable asset to pass on.
It really is. And honestly, this is how many of the most successful, fulfilled leaders ultimately define their purpose. All the complex juggling, the prioritizing, the seeking and giving of mentorship, it all kind of culminates in this final defining question for truly advanced ambition. What do I want to be remembered for?
Wow. And asking that question, it ensures your daily choices, your trade-offs, those non-negotiables we talked about, they're aligned not just with, say, a quarterly target, but with your deepest, longest-term values, your legacy.
That sums it up perfectly. It really synthesizes the whole journey we've been tracing through those three broad stages of ambition that the sources outline. First, mastering the inner foundation, building your resilience, clarifying your purpose.
Right, then building the social framework, learning how to effectively share goals, handle feedback, seek that strategic guidance.
And today, really grasping the sustainable reality, the nitty-gritty strategy behind managing those complex priorities, navigating the inevitable post-achievement slump, and ultimately designing a truly impactful legacy.
Well, we really hope this deep dive has equipped you, our listeners, with that advanced framework. The tools to pursue your biggest goals, not just with raw intensity, but with wisdom, with kindness, and that really critical sense of enduring purpose. It's about driving your life by conscious design, not just by relentless demand.
Yeah. And think about the shift we tracked. We moved from wanting something primarily for yourself, which is achievement, to wanting to create something of lasting value for the world, which is legacy, often through that idea of paying it forward. So maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. Consider this. What specific piece of knowledge, what strategic advantage, maybe even just an insight you gained this week, how can you immediately, tactically pay it forward?
Identify maybe one person you could actively sponsor, one piece of that hard-won wisdom you could deliberately share, or even just one practical resource you could provide to someone coming up behind you. It's one action. It doesn't have to be huge that demonstrates you're starting to use your success and maybe even the knowledge from this conversation as a platform for others. That's definitely something to take into your week. Thank you, as always, for taking this deep dive with us.
Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission here, well, it's really to take these complex, nuanced topics and give you that masterclass briefing you're looking for. We want to go beyond the basics.
Exactly. We're aiming for those internal insights, the things you need to really navigate the world well-informed.
And today, we're tackling something pretty profound, I think. It's about the ambitious life, but specifically about the self.
Right. We've talked about goals, productivity, all that. But this is maybe the advanced lesson, you know, understanding what the journey actually does to the traveler.
Yes, that's it. We're really digging into that relationship between ambition and, well, who you actually are, your identity. This is the stuff that happened after the big success.
Mm-hmm. And we've broken it down into 4 main areas today. First, how success fundamentally changes you. Then the courage it takes to completely reinvent yourself.
That's a big one.
Huge. Then navigating those family or generational ambitions. And finally, maybe the biggest puzzle, balancing that drive with finding real contentment. It's all about the evolving self.
Okay, let's dive right in. Segment 1, that big success. You finally do it. You get the degree, launch the thing, publish the book. The outside world sees the change. But inside, that identity shift, it can be, well, kind of destabilizing, can it?
Oh, absolutely destabilizing,
Yeah.
because you instantly go from studying how to be something, like an architect, to suddenly being the architect. The world labels you.
Yeah.
And there's this pressure to, embody it perfectly.
To live up to the label.
Exactly. And that's where that feeling creeps in, right? The famous one.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah. That feeling that you're a fraud, you don't belong, you're going to be found out, even when you have the proof, the diploma, the job title. Why is it so common for high achievers?
Well, the simple explanation is your internal self-perception just hasn't caught up with the external reality yet. Your mind lags behind the achievement.
Okay, that makes sense.
But there's often something deeper, especially with really ambitious folks.
Yeah.
We sometimes call it the effort fallacy.
Effort fallacy. Tell me more.
It's this idea that if you had to work incredibly hard, like really struggle and sacrifice to get there, you subconsciously credit the success more to the sheer effort, maybe even luck, than to your own sort of innate ability or worthiness.
Huh. So because it felt hard, you feel like you didn't really earn it the way someone who maybe made it look easy did.
Kind of, yeah. You discount your own deservingness because the struggle felt so external almost. So you feel like an imposter because deep down you think, wow, I barely scraped through, even if the outcome was stellar.
Wow. So the intense effort to get the goal actually makes it harder to own the identity afterwards. That's a tough loop.
It really is. Which means the real work after achieving something isn't just performing well in the new role.
It's learning to internalize it, to really believe it.
Exactly. You have to actively align the internal belief with the external fact. It's about consciously rewriting that inner story, looking at the achievement and telling yourself, I am the kind of person who does this, not just, phew, I managed to do this.
Right. It's about actually becoming that person you work so hard to be on paper, which leads us perfectly to the next point. What happens when you've become that person, maybe for years, and then you realize it's not who you want to be anymore?
Ah, yes. That's when courage looks different. It's not about chasing the next thing. It's about the courage to walk away from something established, something secure. That's the art of reinvention.
We hear pivot all the time, especially in business, but this is different, isn't it? A pivot is like changing tactics.
Right. Changing the packaging. Reinvention is changing the whole product. It's a fundamental shift in the goal, the identity, starting a whole new chapter.
And the really hard part seems to be giving up that expert status you built.
Oh, definitely. Imagine that lawyer, 20 years in, top of their game, deciding to become, say, a chef. They're trading expertise, status, probably good income.
For being a beginner again, a novice. That takes, wow, serious guts. And humility.
Immense courage and humility. And you face judgment too, right? People asking, why would you throw that away? They project their own fears onto you. It requires real grit to, like you said earlier, shed your old skin, to leave behind what's comfortable but no longer fits.
So it's not just the internal struggle, but the external pressures too. Financial risk, loss of that social capital.
Absolutely. You might go from being, the expert everyone defers to just another person trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
The courage is choosing curiosity and purpose over comfort and prestige.
And how you talk about it matters, right? You need to frame it carefully.
Very carefully. It's not about bad-mouthing the past. It's about acknowledging you've reached a crossroads and you're intentionally choosing to turn the page.
So phrasing like, I'm proud of my past, but it's time for a new chapter.
Exactly. Something like, I learned so much and I'm grateful for that experience, but I feel a strong pull towards something new now. It's time to dedicate my energy here. It signals strength, intention, not failure or regret.
That intentionality feels key. But, okay, as you're redefining yourself, sometimes you bump up against expectations others have for you, especially family. Which brings us to navigating intergenerational ambition.
Right. Our goals, our identities, they're rarely formed in isolation, are they? Family history, their sacrifices, their dreams for us, it all plays a part. There's often pressure, spoken or unspoken, to follow in their footsteps.
Take over the family business, go into the same profession.
Exactly. And if your own dreams align with that, great, can be incredibly powerful. But the conflict really ignites when your personal calling, your own path, starts to diverge, when it pulls you somewhere completely different.
That sounds really tough. How do you handle that without causing a huge rift?
Well, the really advanced skill here is what we could call reconciliation. And I mean psychological reconciliation, the ability to hold two sort of conflicting truths at the same time.
Okay, like what?
Like holding deep respect for your family's legacy and having an unwavering commitment to your own path, letting them coexist inside you without one canceling out the other.
So it's not choosing between honoring family or honoring yourself, but finding a way to do both. How does that work practically, especially if the family pressure is intense?
It often involves reframing how you relate to that legacy. Instead of seeing it as a rigid path you must walk, maybe see it as a foundation or a map that gave you valuable tools.
So you can say something like, the values you taught me, hard work, integrity, are exactly why I feel confident enough to forge my own path now.
Precisely. You honor their contribution by using it as fuel for your own journey, even if the destination is different. Now, if your path is radically different, like different values, different lifestyle entirely, the metaphor might shift. Maybe it's less forging a new path and more breaking the mold.
Breaking the mold. That implies a bigger separation is needed, maybe because the old framework just doesn't fit at all?
Yes. But even then, the communication needs care. You articulate your need for self-definition without disrespecting where you came from. I feel a strong calling towards this different way of life, and I need the space to build that. It's about defining your own terms for success, respectfully, but clearly.
That clarity, that self-definition, it seems like a culmination. Which brings us, I think, to the ultimate question for anyone living an ambitious life. After all this striving, achieving, maybe reinventing, how do you keep that drive going, but also find genuine happiness, contentment with where you are right now?
The million-dollar question, the great paradox. And the immediate hurdle we hit is that concept from psychology, the hedonic treadmill.
Right. The idea that we adapt really quickly to good things. You get the promotion, you feel amazing for a little while, then it just becomes the new normal.
Exactly. That new level of success becomes baseline, and you need the next achievement to get that happiness spike again. It's relentless.
So if joy only comes from the next win, you're basically setting yourself up for constant dissatisfaction, always living in the future.
Pretty much. Which is why the answer can't be either ambition or contentment. It has to be a synthesis, a way to have both.
A synthesis. Okay, how do we achieve that?
We need to find what you might call a dynamic equilibrium. Equilibrium means balance, right? But the key word is dynamic. It's not a fixed, static state. It's an active, ongoing balancing act that requires constant, conscious effort.
Like juggling, keeping multiple things in the air.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
You're balancing that forward momentum, the drive for growth, with the equally important need for presence, for rest, for appreciation of the now.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? It's easy to say savor the moment, but what does that look like in practice for someone who's naturally driven?
You have to make savoring or peace or presence, whatever you call it, just as non-negotiable as your work goals. You actually have to operationalize it.
Operationalize peace. I like that.
Yeah. It means scheduling rest and reflection with the same seriousness you schedule meetings. It means consciously practicing gratitude, not just for the future goal, but for the skills you're building right now, the progress you've already made. It's about finding satisfaction in the striving, not just after it.
So it's like being a top athlete who also knows how to truly recover and enjoy the journey, not just fixate on the finish line, recognizing that the process, growth itself, is a huge part of the reward.
You've got it. If you're only happy when you cross the finish line, you spend most of your life unhappy. But if you can find genuine satisfaction in the purposeful effort, in the learning, in the doing, then contentment can coexist with ambition. We sometimes call it a delicate dance.
A delicate dance between drive and peace.
Exactly. An elegant partnership, mastering that dance, finding that fluid, dynamic equilibrium. That might be the ultimate success in an ambitious life.
Not just the achievements, but the ability to hold both striving and savoring together. Wow.
That's the summit, I think.
This has been incredibly illuminating. A real deep dive into the architecture of the ambitious self. We started with that identity shift after success and, imposter syndrome.
And the effort fallacy.
Right. Then the courage needed for true reinvention, stepping back into being a novice.
Then handling intergenerational ambition through reconciliation and honoring legacies while forging your own path.
And finally, tackling that huge paradox, aiming for that dynamic equilibrium, the ongoing dance between drive and contentment.
Yeah, integrating ambition and peace.
We really hope these ideas give you, the listener, some useful frameworks, maybe some wisdom for navigating your own ambitious journey with resilience.
Absolutely. Hopefully these concepts are things you can actually use as you define and redefine yourself along the way.
Which leaves us with maybe one final thought to chew on. If ambition inherently means your identity is always evolving, always changing,
If the self is an ongoing project,
then maybe the real lifelong project isn't just hitting those milestones. Maybe it's mastering the art of continuous, deliberate self-definition within that delicate, dynamic equilibrium we talked about.
something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time.